Hi Copic friends, it's Michelle Houghton here with Copic in the Craft Room. We're going to be looking at mixed media one more time, and this time we're adding on to those pages, adding a whole nother layer on top of some of those base layers that we've created. So we're getting some of those stencils back out, we're going to add some more gesso, but we're adding some finishing touches on those pages and possibly even dyeing some separate elements. So remember, these techniques can be used on any of your craft projects, or they can be combined with the other mixed media portions that we've done into a single mixed media album. I hope you'll join me and stick around. Thanks so much. Let's go play and get a little inky. We have shifted over to my workspace next to my well-lit windows, so we're ready to go. Today we're going to be looking at another way to add images onto mixed media. Now, I'm going to give you a little heads up here right as we get going. I am going to be breaking some Copic rules. Everywhere we tell you, and even in our certification classes, we will tell you that if you work with Copic in mixed media, Copic goes first. You don't want to put it on top of anything else because the alcohol breaks things down and gets up on the nibs of your pen. I am breaking those rules today. I am purposefully doing that. I am going to do some precautionary things, and I will tell you as I do them, but I'm going to tell you that I am breaking the rules today. I can run into some issues where I'm going to have to replace nibs, but I am okay with that. I am making that choice. Just a little FYI before we even get going. So I'm going to work on 3 separate pages here and then show you a little quick thing with some doodads at the end, some embellishments. So let's start with this one, and we'll just go ahead and start right in with one of these stencils. Again, this is from Ranger, and it's a mixed media stencil by Dina Wakely. I'm gonna lay this right on top, and I'm going to do a couple different techniques. The first of which, I'm going to go ahead and color right through that stencil. If I hit the edges, it's okay. Yes, I am coloring on top of gesso. So what I'm going to have to do, it is going to start reliquifying that gesso. So it's going to start moving it around a little bit. And because this is a really juicy marker, it is probably going to get up and under this stencil a little bit. So I'm getting a little bit of gesso on my marker. I have a scratch paper that I'm going to scratch it off on. So it pulled that ink underneath the stencil in a couple little spots, but you get kind of the general effect. I could go around that with a multi-liner if I wanted, or I can leave it just as is. Another similar technique is to color around, actually on the stencil. Very faint, it's going to have a chalk-like effect, but I'm going to push that color through the stencil so it brushes it off the stencil onto the gesso. There is a second effect. A third really fun one that you can do with not stencils, but masks. So you can see, you can actually still even do some blending with color. It's a little play back and forth, but I like using masks as well as stencils. The more you can hold it solid, and you could use a repositionable tape or adhesive to really stick that down, but that gives you an idea of some effects that you can do directly on that. We can do similar things on the acrylic, but the acrylic is going to work even differently. I think I'm going to do something similar with these faces and this little crown. So really fun. Acetate and plastic works, again, totally different than gesso. Gesso ends up with a much more watercolor effect. But you can't blend like you can on paper. It just does not work. But you can color on top of gesso. You can color on top of plastic. Remember, we had done gesso and dripped ink on this side. That created kind of a solid color to base this on. If I color out on clear, it will be very transparent, but because I have that gesso on the other side, now I can color directly on that plastic. This will take a little while to dry, but I can set that to the side. I've got a couple neat faces that will be seen in my book. And then I've got this gorgeous face, and we're gonna try to play a little bit. I'm gonna keep my markers close, and I'm gonna keep this scratch paper close. Remember, we wanna scribble off as soon as that gesso starts picking up on our markers. There you go. Now you can see a better close-up of what I've got going. I hope you saw, even in the sped up motion, that I'm really quickly scrubbing a lot of this off as I go. As much as anything, you're picking up and moving color versus blending it. It is a whole different technique. So let me go into some of this second butterfly, or even better yet, let me go into this butterfly down by her cheek and show you a little bit better close up what some of that is looking like. So you can get a feel for how that is going to look. You definitely can see your stroke marks. That is not going to erase. It is not going to be smooth. I'm working very quickly and lightly. I'm pushing color and moving it up, actually picking it up, scratching it off. You can kind of see I have been doing a ton of scribbling, and that is truly as I go. So as soon as I've got so much on my pen that I can't keep coloring, I'm pushing it off. So my lighter color picks up the dark, moves it around a little bit, scrub it off. Pick up a little more, move it around, scrub it off. It's a pattern that just goes over and over again. I will keep working on this, but you can see what this does. I will have this more completed the next time I show you some techniques. So we'll set this to the side, and that will come back in a later episode. So you see, you have to come back now. Lastly, I want to just remind you of something. Everything can be colored with Copic, and that includes metals, it includes plastics, and so I am going to add some embellishments at the end of when I assemble my projects, and I'm getting closer. I have about 1 or 2 more layers that I'm going to do, and then I will be assembling. So I want to remind you that even if you're assembling with rings or using metal rings on something, you can use an airbrush, or you can come in and literally color your metals with Copic. These all happen to be by Ranger Tim Holtz, but any plastics, metals, so don't forget all the embellishments, that all of those can also grab onto our Copic ink. If you'd like a smoother look, the airbrush is a great system. Grab a set of needle nose pliers, hold on, spray. You don't even get inky. Of course, I'm a mess again. Let's take a look at everything we did. We've got the embellishments that we can add on. We did some stamping with coloring on top of gesso. We have the acrylic sheet. I used both a mask and a stencil and did some inking right through that. This is right on top of the acrylic, so there was nothing underneath that. And then again on top of gesso, this is through a stencil and then around a mask. This was that really faint effect by drawing directly on the stencil and pushing it off with the paper towel and some colorless blender. So another group of techniques, all again that can be used in your crafting, your card making, scrapbooking, crafting, mixed media activities. And all of this is still aiming towards a mixed media album. Believe it or not, in about 2 months, we're gonna put it all together and you're gonna see the final book. And I will show you how I put it together. Thanks for checking back again this week. I hope you have a happy, colorful Copic week.